Hello, I'm so excited you could join me today because I am celebrating summer with my summer berry galette. Yes, I'm getting right into it. Now, a galette is a free-form tart, so a little less formal than a two-crust pie, but it celebrates the fruit filling. So I'm going to show you what assortment of fresh berries you can use in this. We'll talk about tips for rolling my signature pie dough. Bake it all up, and before you know it, you're going to have your very own summer berry galette. You can bake a galette using any fruit that you would use in a regular fruit pie. Since it's peak berry season here, I thought let's celebrate berries with a mixed berry galette. Now, you may have heard the term bumbleberry tossed around, and that refers to simply this, a mix of any berry, so long as it's in season and delicious. So I've got a combination of fresh blueberries, blackberries, the very last of the strawberries, though ever-bearing strawberries tend to yield all summer long. And a little tip about strawberries, you want to mix them with other more tart fruits. That's why the blackberries are perfect. And for a fun little twist, I've got mulberries here. Quite often you think of a mulberry as a throwaway berry, but they are delicious. They have the flavor kind of in between a blueberry and a blackberry. When you buy them, they'll have their stems on, but you leave them on. They're super tender, so you don't have to go through and pick each of them off. Raspberry season is over here, so that's why I have this amazing mix. And what I'm going to do is put them all in my bowl. I've listed my berry mix here, but so long as you have that volume of 7 cups, yes, almost 2 liters of berries, because they cook down so much when they cook, you can really make your own bumbleberry tart. I'll add the mulberries in. There we go. And before I toss them together, what I want to do is combine my sugar with my cornstarch. Because it's a berry tart, I use as little sugar as possible. I'm really relying on the natural sugars within the berries, which is why you see such a small measurement. I have a couple tablespoons of cornstarch. Let me grab a fork here. You could use potato starch if you want. And because the berries are so juicy, if you don't add a starch, you'll just find you have a puddle of liquid running out of your galette when you bake it. So the cornstarch helps hold in those delicious juices. And I just add just a pinch of cinnamon. But you don't need too much. When fresh fruit is in season, it's the star of the show. I stir the cornstarch and sugar together. That way, when the tart bakes, you don't get any lumps of cornstarch thickening the juices. It's all evenly coated and covering the fruit. Fresh berries in season have a lot of natural pectin anyhow within the seeds. So in combination with that little bit of starch and the natural pectin, you'll get a nice set for your fruit tart. Okay, that's a lot of berries. Let me move these out of the way because now it's time to roll my pie dough into that galette shape. And here I have my signature pie dough. Now this is a half recipe. You can find the full recipe video right here on OEM, including all the step-by-step instructions in writing as well. This is a keeper of a recipe. It's tender, it's flaky, and you can use it for a traditional pie or in this case, the galette. So in that video, I show you how to make the dough. Now we're gonna get the hang of rolling it. So flour both sides. And I've got my pin, just a bit of flour. And I start with gentle motions, rotating the dough 90 degrees as I go, just to make sure it's not sticking. And now and again, you need to flip the dough over to check for any cracks. When you're putting all your pressure from the top of the dough, it will potentially open up. And remember, this recipe is made with a generous amount of butter, which when it chills, sets up. So cracks are inevitable. It's part of the process. You haven't done anything wrong if you see cracks forming in your dough. Now, the ones on the edges of this dough I don't worry about because that's actually part of the rustic look of the galette. It's only the ones in the center I'm trying to avoid or repair so that I don't have that berry filling leaking out. And right now I'm putting all the pressure on this side of the pin and focusing as I roll on thinning out the dough on the outside edge here. And that way I'm not putting too much stretching pressure on the center, but it is rolling out at the same time. So again, preventing those cracks in the center. I'm going to roll this just shy of 1/4 inch, so about 5 millimeters thick. As far as it'll go, and because this isn't going into a pie plate, I'm baking it on a baking tray, I'll fill it on the tray, not here on my work surface. I still have a little room. So by the time you're done rolling, your disc of dough should be about minimum 12 inches across, more like 15. There we go. Behaving nicely. Let's flip it over just to be sure. But these uneven edges, I absolutely love. That's what gives your galette character once you've filled it. All right. I have my tray lined with parchment paper, and you can roll this up on your pin if you want, but I've just folded it in half, lifted onto the tray. I've been distracted and made this galette, assembled it on my work area, and then realized, oh my goodness, how do I get it to the tray? So, important but simple step. And now that beautiful berry filling goes right on top of the pastry. Oh my gosh, I washed the berries, but there's a little blueberry leaf. No fake blueberries here. Now, let me collect all my fruit and put it in place. These blackberries are gigantic. Okay, so now these berries will cook down to at least half their volume, but all those flavors and juices will meld, but we want to contain them. So this is where that rough and rustic approach comes in. I usually aim for 5 or 6 folds, but if you don't have a lot of extra pastry, if you end up with 8 or 12 folds, that's fine too. And I'm overlapping the folds to hold in the berries, going for as round a shape as I can, but again, it's not meant to be perfect. And then for that last fold, I lift up the first fold, and that way all the folds are going the same direction. And I take a second and with the base of my hand, press the bottom of the tart. That way where you folded it will stay in place as the tart bakes. You don't want this opening up like a flower in the oven. So this should stay intact. And to give it a bit of polish, although it's a rustic tart, a little egg wash adds nice shine. And I do this if I'm doing a pie. It promotes a nice even browning. And because there's not a lot of sugar in the pie mix itself, a little sprinkle of sugar on the crust, because there's barely any sugar in the crust either, just rounds out the sweetness. And this is turbinado, raw cane sugar. So it's got a nice crunch. It's dry as opposed to the more wet Demerara style brown sugar. All right. Now, the oven's been preheated to 375, and I bake this like a fruit pie. It takes about 40 minutes. A fruit pie takes closer to an hour, but I find this takes 40 to 45 because you only have the one crust and the fruit is so exposed. So you'll look for a nice even browning and some bubbling juices. Some juices will leak out of the tart. That's just part of the nature of a rustic galette. And here we go. See, I wasn't kidding about how that volume of fruit cooks down, but I just love this little rustic ruffle of the tart. I've got that beautiful browning, the shine, the crystallized sugar on the outside. And of course, there are the drips. So a little side note here. If you're looking at the mess on your baking tray and think, oh my gosh, how am I gonna get that off? You simply soak it. So I set it on top of my sink, I fill it with water, honestly let it sit for 10 minutes. All this fruit and sugar liquefies and you don't even have to scrub it. It just rinses away. Being rustic, I serve it right on the tray. I don't try and lift this onto a serving plate, or if anything, you could slide it off, leaving the parchment on place, onto a cutting board to present at the table. So let me cut a slice here. You can see the juices, but it's not running. It's a juicy tart, all those fruit juices, but they're staying in place. I absolutely love it. So while we're talking about other recipes, I was talking about my pie dough recipe. I just made my essential vanilla ice cream recipe. So a slice of berry pie with some vanilla ice cream, you can't go wrong. So you can find the link for the ice cream recipe, of course, here on Oh Yum. Ooh, that is so freshly made, it's still very soft. Is that not an absolutely perfect summer dessert? Without all the fussiness of making a pie, you can celebrate pastry and summer fruits with this bumbleberry galette, or mixed berry galette, however you choose to call it, just as long as you give this recipe a try. I put these recipes through the paces so that you don't have to. I hope you enjoy this recipe, and I'll see you again soon for another bake along, or maybe it's going to be a cook along. And that pastry on the bottom stays nice and crisp. Oh, I love summer berry season. Bye everyone, thanks for watching.